All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? Again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Katie Kapler. I am the co-founder and CEO at InScribe, and I will be taking us on this journey today. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Danielle Bonner, who is going to help facilitate questions and answers. And so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or into the Q&A area. We'll keep an eye on that space and answer questions either in the chat directly, or we'll pause periodically and see what questions have come in and we can talk about them as a group. This session is being recorded, so we will provide that information to you after the webinar as well. And just to give you a sense of how we're going to set up the conversation today, so we're here to talk about how you can use Inscribed Communities to support classroom Q&A. If you're not familiar with Inscribe, we are a digital community platform. We actually get used in lots of different ways across universities, from everything to admissions, to student support, to academics and learning, to even alumni relations. For the purposes of today, we're really going to focus on that classroom and academic use case. But if you have questions about any of those other areas, feel free to reach out to us after. We're happy to share more information there. We are going to start out by looking at a few examples from some of our customers who have been using Inscribe in this kind of classroom modality. This is a subset of information from some webinars that those partners did with us either earlier this year or late last year. So we will also send out the link to that full webinar where you can kind of go in and get more detail and more information in our follow-ups today. So I already introduced myself. We'll skip right over this. And then I had to give a shout out to the company. We just found out that we had won the EdTech Breakthrough Award as Best Online Study Tool. And since it was relevant to our topic today, I wanted to give kudos to the team and to the platform for this award that we really value and I think represents our work really nicely. So let's talk a little bit about why this topic is something that we think is so important. And the reality is, for anybody who has ever had to manage a classroom, it's really difficult to stay on top of all the questions that students have, particularly in large classes. There are questions coming in all these different ways, oftentimes getting emails at midnight or 1 in the morning. Most faculty or TAs that we talk to tell us that they will answer the same question literally 100 times every semester. And when they do offer opportunities for students to come and get that extra help, like office hours, it's not really the students that need it that are showing up. So you get a lot of overachievers maybe in the office hours, and those students that really need the help, or maybe don't even realize they need the help, are not coming. And then the other, there's also this population of students who maybe are a little confused, don't know what's going on, but don't really have the courage to speak up at a bit that they have a question. And when everything is being done in person, sometimes it's hard for those students to feel like they have a voice, or, to find their voice. And then if that's not bad enough, semester ends, all the hard work that a faculty member did in the previous semester stays with that semester, and you start all over again the next term. So we wanted to create a better way to manage this flow. So with Inscribe, some of the benefits that you get are one single space to manage all of the questions and conversations for your classroom. And that could either be a single course section, but you're providing visibility into those questions to all of your students right away. Or if you're teaching multiple sections, you can still have one space that all your sections are tapping into. So you're not having to repeat that work each section at a time. Anytime you answer a question, it's automatically shared and visible to all of your students. So they can search for answers. It's like right there when they log in, and you're going to reduce the number of duplicate questions that you get over time. In fact, I was just talking to one of our partners who had recently turned on Inscribe, and they saw a 23% reduction in the amount of support questions that the team was managing through email and phone calls, because they had pushed everything to Inscribe. You can also see the activity of the other members. So if you have TAs and you're curious, how are they answering student questions? What feedback are they giving? You can actually see that work in real time. And of course, making sure that those shy students or students who are busy and can't make it to office hours are still able to participate because it's a digital always on solution. And then at the end of the term, take all the really great FAQs that you have generated and roll them over. So they're just ready to go in your classroom when you start the next semester. So we're going to start with our first use case, which is Indiana University's Kelley School of Business. They were using InScribe actually in an enterprise data management project that they were running on edX. So this is a MicroMasters program that they're running on edX with many thousands of students. So they really needed to find a way to scale up how they were supporting these students and answering the questions that they had. And just a few key metrics from the work there. They had almost, well, that might be a bit of a stretch, but 1,700, 1,800 monthly active users in this course. Almost a little over 1,300 conversations started. Every conversation got answered, sometimes multiple times. But what we really love, the metric we really love out of here is that out of the conversations and resources, almost 100,000 views of that content. So you can see that it's not a one-to-one conversation to answer. You really are having one conversation that benefits many, many students across the program. And some of the examples and sort of specific benefits that they saw were, somebody would post a question and before it could get answered, 3 or 4 other students would jump in and say, me too, me too, me too. So not only are you helping multiple students, but you're also getting some visibility into the number of students that might be struggling with a particular concept. They also use their Inscribed community because this was a purely digital course to help build some relationships and community among their students. So they had the tactical side, which was like, let's ask questions and get answers, but they also had a social side where people would just say, here's where I'm from, here's what I'm interested in, here's what brought me into this program. And we heard over and over again, students say how much they enjoyed building the relationships with their fellow students along with, learning and mastering the course content. And of course, the idea of students helping each other, because, as a faculty member, you don't have to answer every question if you can get some of your students to jump in and answer it as well. And that's great, for learning reasons, because, when you're answering someone else's question, it reinforces your learning. But it's also great because at 2 o'clock in the morning, if someone has a question, knowing that there are other students and student leaders there who can jump in and help means that the faculty member, is not having to monitor everything at 24 hours a day. So it really is tapping into this idea of collective support and everyone kind of in it together. And then, this, which I thought was great, was somebody after the course coming back to share her experience, what she benefited from in the classroom, and kind of paying it forward to the next generation of students that were coming in. And we see that often too, like, here's what I wish I would have known when I started this class. And then that becomes part of the repository of knowledge for the next set of students. And the students really loved it as well. They gave us really strong feedback in terms of the usability of the product, how easy it was to tap into, and that tends to translate to a higher level of satisfaction with the program and the courses overall, which in the case of IU is really important. So that's a great use case kind of focused on the idea of scalability and efficiency in the product. The next one I want to touch on is one from Arizona State University, where they incorporated InScribe into their first year math classes. And they were specifically, they were looking at things like scalability of support, but of course also with a real mindset toward improving outcomes for their students. So just to give you a sense, at ASU Online, they have, well over 11,000 students taking math, 104 sections, and really big sections, hundreds of students per section. So it was really unwieldy for the faculty members to try to manage all that flow of conversation, even with TAs. It was like pretty overwhelming. So they created a new model, which is to take all the students that were learning a particular math course, and even though they had individual sections, they shared a single Inscribed community on our side. So we were pooling all of the faculty and TAs into one shared space. And students were directed to ask their questions there. Faculty and TAs, then they have a group of folks called learning assistants would provide answers to those questions. That was then visible to all the students learning math. And this was the model that they implemented starting in fall of 2020. And here's just a few notes on activity, but once again, you see, a lot of questions getting asked, a huge number of views from students on those questions in the community. So the answers are reaching a big population. But what's even more exciting is the outcomes that they saw for their students. So from one semester to the next, about an 8-point increase in the number of students who were successfully completing those courses. And that benefit was realized not just in fall 2020, but repeated again in spring 2021. And not listed here, but they also told us that they saw significant drops in the number of students who were withdrawing from the class, and about a 10% improvement in the number of students getting an A in that class. So, the idea that you can have the scalability, but you can also have the positive outcomes for students, which is so important. And, we got great feedback from the students there as well, certainly around learning, but this first one I really love, especially for a math class, because we often see students feeling nervous or, like, I'm the only one that doesn't understand this. And when you're in a community and you see other people that are asking that same question that you had, it really goes a long way to help boosting your confidence and making you realize, like, I'm not in this alone. And if other people can do this, so can I. And that was very meaningful to us as well. I just chatted a lot. Danielle, any questions pop in while I was talking?
I don't see any questions quite yet, but I did put links to both the IU recent webinar that we did with them, as well as the ASU webinar in the chat, and we will send those out via email after this session.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Danielle.
No problem.
So I'm going to hop over now and we'll just take a look at InScribe itself. And you can kind of see what a course experience might be in action. I am going to start by demoing InScribe as what I would say a standalone product. But then we will also look at an integrated experience. So 95% of the time, people are coming to us through some other platform. So InScribe integrates really nicely with your learning management system, all the major LMSs, including Canvas, Blackboard, D2L, Moodle. We also integrate with edX, Open edX, and I think there's a few others that I might not have listed. So whatever you've got, we can integrate with it. We use LTI, so very standard approach and very easy to turn on. So let's start with the standalone, and then I'll jump and show you that integrated view as well. Just to orient us, we are in the InScribe organization, and in this case, we're in a college algebra community. You can make your communities as broad or as narrow as you want. So this might be a community that's just for an individual course section, and that's fine, and we see that all the time. In this example, we're mirroring a little bit closer to what ASU did, which is a larger community bringing multiple course sections together. And then within your community, content tends to be organized by topic. In academic communities, we often see the topics set up to align with the weeks in the content that the students are learning in the learning management system. So that's what we have done here. Other examples would be to have the topics be, course content, homework, exams, something that, a little higher level. Just know that the topics are very customizable, so you can remap them and design them to fit kind of how you think about supporting your student population. And then we also have this concept of channels. So because we're in a bigger community, we have set up the channels are like subgroups in your community. So I'm a faculty member and I am teaching multiple sections of math. And so I've created an InScribe community where I bring all my sections together. I have a general space that everyone can access for all their math questions. And then I have individual spaces for each of my sections if folks have questions that are specific to what's happening in that individual section. You could also design the channels around your individual TAs if they are responsible for a subset of students. Or you may decide channels, you don't want channels, it's not necessary for your use case, and then that's really easy to turn off. So within the platform, I'll jump into week one, there's really two types of content that will be in your Inscribed community. There are the conversations. So that's usually very student driven, right? Those are the questions or the observations that students are making and contributing. And then we also have a resources area, which is generally reserved just for the moderator. And that's a place where you could add supplemental content like extra videos, or, I have an example of a con video here, articles, websites, anything that might relate to what the students are learning, but isn't part of the core content of your course. Oftentimes folks will come with a small set of resources and we'll preload those for you. And then you can use the conversations that students are having. If they get really excited about a particular concept or really hung up or stuck on a particular concept, that might be an opportunity to go create or find a resource related to that, bring it in and add it. But you can see that these are all tagged specifically to this topic, week 1, around quadratic functions. So we keep them kind of contained. When a student comes to Inscribe, oftentimes they will have a specific question. So so the platform is designed for that reusability of content. So if they have a question, they'll come, they'll search for it. All the content in the platform is fully searchable. And it's possible that they're going to find the question that they have, somebody else has already asked that question, and the answer has been provided. So they can essentially get what they need right away, move on. That's one less question you have to ask. And that means that student got help immediately, rather than maybe having to wait for somebody to wait for the next class session or wait for somebody to answer an email. Now, that won't always, well, two things. We can't always count on students to search. So one of the things that we've done is we've built, this is Rosie, and she's the AI that lives in the Inscribed communities and helps facilitate moderation. And in this case, what she's doing is essentially pushing the student towards resources that she thinks can help them, even if the student didn't go through that search process initially. So we're really going to try and direct the student to the content and answers you've already provided. But let's say they couldn't find anything that was helpful. So they're going to post a new question about quadratic formulas. They're going to post it in general math Q&A. And when they post, you can see here, you can bring in images, videos. We do have a math editor. So you can author content and equations directly into the platform, which is relevant for math, obviously. You can add links to other platforms. So you can really build a very rich sort of conversation experience. And then for those students, they have a couple of choices when they post. They can post generally to all the members of the community. They can post anonymously, or they can post just to the moderators. So the moderators would be a private conversation between myself and whoever's running or managing the community. If a student posts anonymously, that anonymity extends to the student's peers, but not to the moderators. So as a moderator, you would always be able to see who that student is. So we don't offer that sort of like full level of anonymity, and that's on purpose because we think a certain level of like knowing that your participation the people are aware of your participation helps drive positive behavior in the community. So in this case, we'll post to the members. So once a question gets posted, the system will send out email notifications to the members of the community. Those notifications are fully customizable. So each individual can go in and decide whether they want to know right away, turn it off, or send me kind of a summary of what's happened at the end of the day. And you'll set the defaults in your community, and then each person can customize it. But it's great so that you're not having to constantly monitor the community to see what's going on. The community will actually proactively alert you to what's happening. And then you can jump in and provide a great answer. Let's say that conversation has actually already been taking place somewhere else. You might redirect the student to an existing conversation and say, check this out. And then, kind of close down this thread. There's no limit to the number of answers that come in. So sometimes it's one and done, or sometimes you'll see 4 or 6 great answers from, with different perspectives and opinions. You can see here that I carry this little badge with me wherever I go. That's because I'm a moderator, and it's a great visual cue for students to see where I've been posting and what the sort of official answers and posts might be. If a student posts and it's a really great answer, no need for you to recreate that. You can just endorse that student's post, and now it's going to carry that badge with it. So again, a great visual cue. And now I've given this individual credit for providing a great answer in the community. If there are multiple answers, and let's say your answer comes in third or fourth, but you really want to make sure that when students see the content, they're looking at your answer first, you can actually pin your answer. Oops, I didn't mean to flag that. You can actually pin your response to the top, and now that will always remain at the top of the queue and the first thing that students see when they jump in. One other thing that the platform is doing is where Rosie comes into play is, you can't necessarily stay on top of all of the content in the community when it's happening. So there's two additional things we can do with Rosie right now. One is you can provide us with a list of keywords. One of those keywords ever appears, Rosie will flag the post and automatically alert you. Rosie also runs all the conversations through a sentiment API. So that is assessing the emotion of the conversations. And if one of the conversations starts to get really frustrated or upset, the system will automatically identify it, flag it, and alert you. So that's what's happened here. We can sense that this student is getting frustrated or angry, and it's a signal that this is a post that either would benefit from immediate interaction, or this is a student that might really need you to pick up the phone and call them or send them a personal email to try and resolve whatever's going on. So our AI is not about replacing the activities of the faculty or the TAs that are supporting students, but about enhancing it and helping you understand what might be some of the priorities in your community and where you might want to direct your attention first. So let me pause. Any questions so far, Danielle?
No questions at this point.
Okay, great.
Remember, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. You can either send them directly to the panelists, so it's anonymous, or you're welcome to put them in the Q&A feature as well.
Awesome. So one question we often get is, well, what if somebody does post something inappropriate in the community? What do I do? And usually what I think what they mean by inappropriate is more, maybe they asked a question about the homework and not everybody's turned the homework in yet. So I don't want everybody to be talking about that right away. So you have a couple of options. You can edit or delete any post in the community. So you might choose to remove it altogether and then just shoot a note to that student. More often what we see is that folks will take that conversation and move it into this moderator only status. So we're not removing it, but we're essentially taking it out of the view of the other members of the community. And then that allows me to continue to have a conversation with that student or maybe address their question without everybody seeing that content and tapping into it. We also have some great tools for moderators. And for participants, you can quickly get to anything in the community that doesn't have a response. You can also, as a moderator, get to things with no moderator response. So if a student's answered it, but you want to make sure that you've chimed in or someone from your team has chimed in, you can quickly get to just those no moderator response items. And you can also quickly jump to anything that's been flagged for follow-up. You probably saw earlier, there's two ways to do that. Rosie will automatically flag things for you. And then you can also manually flag items if you want to more easily get back to it later, or if you want to alert somebody else that there's something that they might want to come take a look at, you can do that there. And then of course you can jump to things that you've read, that you haven't read, and archived conversations, which we didn't touch on. So at the point that your term ends and you want to move on to the next term, you can choose to just roll your Inscribed community right over. And then what we often see is that folks will come in and just archive out content from the community that's no longer relevant. So anything that
I think that actually is really nicely goes into a question that I got privately.
Okay, great.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like,
No,
oh,
please do. You know
this
me.
is like right in the same vein. This is perfect. And so the question is, how does our platform differ than a discussion board or such as Piazza?
Yes. So, so relative to like a discussion board, the main differences would be, using the native discussion board in the LMS, if you've ever tried to do that, not very searchable. The threads get really unwieldy, so it's not really designed for question and answer. So as the semester goes on and more content is coming in, it's not very well organized. It's kind of difficult to find what you want and get back to it. Whereas in InScribe, having everything organized by topic, totally searchable, giving students agency over things like following particular topics or following individual conversations means they're building like their own collection of things that they can easily and quickly get back to. So from a student's perspective, I think the experience of finding what I need and participation is much, much easier. From a faculty member's perspective, some of the tools that we have in here around moderation to quickly jump to what you want, specifically relative to Piazza, having those AI tools in there that are really helping facilitate that moderation and helping you get where you want to go. Helping you understand where you might want to pay attention are very unique to InScribe. I don't think there are any other folks out there that are really thinking about it in quite that way. Also, that ability to easily stitch together multiple sections of courses into a single community is pretty unique, but also being able to do that from the integrated experience. So that's a nice segue over to the Canvas integration, which we can take a look at here. So as I mentioned, we integrate with all the major LMSs. This is Canvas, which some of you are probably familiar with. And there's lots of different ways you can integrate with your Canvas course. So you can have it just in the left-hand navigation. You could obviously rename this, whatever makes sense for you. And then when you click that, one of the other benefits of InScribe is you don't have to jump out to InScribe in its own tab. You can use what we call our embedded homepage, which is going to launch your community right in that learning experience. So you keep the students in the context of learning, which is much less distracting and means that it's much easier for them to get back to the other elements of your course when they want to or need to. But really what we're seeing here is all the same features and functionality that we saw in the main platform, but contained within this, this space that lives inside of your course. So you can do everything here. You can browse, you can search, you can ask a new question, you can answer other people's questions, or you can choose to jump out to a new tab if you want to. But this same experience, you could have, MAT 117 section 1, 2, 3, 4 in Canvas, but they're all going to point to the same Inscribed community on our side. There's also some other things that you can do with your integration in the LMS. One is we often see people create week-specific links to Inscribe, and they'll usually do that as creating a content item. And then one of the nice things about that, if I click this, when you author that link, you can pre-filter it down to the specific topic that that student is thinking about and working on. So here we are in Inscribe, but I'm only seeing content and information relevant to quadratic equations. And when I go to ask a question, it's going to automatically tag the question for me to that particular topic area. And we hear that a lot, which is, students not tagging questions or tagging it incorrectly. And so the more that we can kind of do that for them, the better organized it keeps your community in the long run. And then if you want to get, really fancy, we also, anywhere there's HTML in the platform, you can create these links to Inscribe. So we have a little widget in the editor. We'll open that up, and this will show you the process of creating a link. So you just choose where you want the link to go. So do we want to do that embedded homepage, or maybe we want it, to link out to Inscribe in its own tab. We can decide which channel we want to launch to. And then we can pick a topic area. So we'll pick, I don't know if there's any content in week 8. So we'll pick week 2 and then just click done, and it will automatically create that link for us. Which doesn't look very elegant on this page, but nonetheless, it will work. And then when I click that, it's going to automatically launch me directly into that topic area. So creating the links is just as easy as that. It's the same workflow when you're creating content items within modules as well. So a lot of flexibility, keep it super simple, just have that left-hand nav link, or you can get a little bit more integrated into the classroom with some of these deeper link strategies.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is in regards to implementation and partner support. So right here, even on this screen that you're showing, there's a lot of resources that are in here. Is the institution uploading those resources, or does InScribe facilitate that process?
So during setup, we can facilitate that process. So if you have, and there's kind of two sides to that coin. So if you have existing resources you want to load into your communities, we can do that for you at the outset and just get you preloaded and ready to go. If you're running an academic community and are interested in finding resources that might be useful, we have done some work around indexing OER content. Khan is a great example of that. So we can help make recommendations on types of content that you could bring in to pre-populate that if that was something that's interesting to you.
Wonderful. So I think that answers that question there for that attendee. There's another one, and I think it's a two-parter. Who would you consider the power user of your product?
Like what institution would I consider the power user? Or
no, I'm thinking power user within the product. So you have the students, you have faculty.
I mean, as you might imagine, that varies a little bit by use case, but I would say students are often power users of our product. They really gravitate, and I mentioned it gets used in other contexts as well. For students, using InScribe is just a natural extension of what they're already doing. They jump in, they run with it, and they often become leaders in the communities themselves, which is great to see. But then in terms of the moderators and who really steps in to lead the communities and the academic sense, of course, the faculty. If the faculty have teaching assistants, we often see the teaching assistants maybe take the lead role in the community, and then the faculty play more of an oversight role where they're seeing what's going on, they're aware of what's happening, but maybe they're not the frontline responders. So that, again, it will vary a little just by organization and what classes we're working in.
Okay. And then the second question that this attendee has is about analytics. So maybe you're going to get a chance to show us a little bit more about the analytics within the product. But is there the ability to see who's logging into the community and when and how long they're in there?
Great question. So let's jump over to analytics. So we have this community admin area where you can see and manage all the members of your community. This will show you the last active date, so when the individuals have logged in. We don't track time in the platform. We track, because it tends to be a misrepresentation of actual activity, because someone might jump in and then just leave their tab open, or so we track activity and behavior in the platform based on the interactions of the individual with InScribe. And an interaction could be logging in, viewing a piece of content, post or asking something, or starting a new conversation, engaging in somebody else's conversation, or providing feedback, meaning like an upvote or responding to. So you can see that you get all of that data here as well. We also have some analytics dashboards that will show you what's been happening in the platform over time. So you can see more of an aggregate view of the health and behavior of your communities over time. Our demo communities are always very disappointing in that regard. We need more people participating in our demos. And then you can see who is most active, and you can see what content seems to be gathering the most activity and interaction. And then you can also export the data. So if you want to get a list of all of your members and specifically what they've been doing when they last logged in, you can select those dates and just download that as a CSV file. And then you'd have access to that to combine it with other data from other platforms, for example, or just to resort it however makes sense for you.
Nice. One more question. So can you include people outside of the university within the community?
You can. So that's really up to you. So we will certainly, we mentioned LTI. We can also authenticate with your school's authentication system. But the platform is designed also to welcome in others. So examples of that might be, I don't know how relevant it is in the academic use case, but alumni get included a lot to come back and participate. Or if you have, practitioners that are experts in the field that your students are studying and you want to have them participate for the whole semester or just for like be a guest, have a guest appearance for a period of time, you can give them a login and allow them in as well. So it's really designed to have that flexibility that allows people to log in directly or to come in through your LMS system, however you want to do that.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, we talked a little bit about the analytics, and then I want to quickly also, before we wrap up, touch on user profile. So I mentioned that we are, thinking about the behavior and the interaction of participants in the community based on what they're doing and how they're interacting with the platform. And we reinforce the behavior, the strong behaviors that build great community and great interaction through a reputation system. So you can see here where I've leveled up in the community and my total reputation points. And we think about that today across these three lenses. So am I initiating conversations? And if so, are the conversations I'm initiating garnering a lot of interaction from other people? So am I asking interesting things? Are the questions I'm asking benefiting other folks? And then where am I joining in other people's conversations? So am I providing answers or other feedback, and what's the impact of those answers that I give? Am I getting endorsements? Am I getting views? Am I getting upvotes on? So assessing sort of the quality of my interactions. And then we also really look at what am I viewing in the platform? So we call this the good listener badge. And it's sometimes overlooked. We sort of forget that consuming the content that other people are putting out there is also part of being a good community steward and a good participant. And so we want to make sure that we're also, giving people credit for coming in and looking at the stuff that you're sharing with them and reusing the content that's made available. So the reputation system is designed, at level 1, just to get you started, kind of get over the hump of first interaction. And then level 2, like, are we seeing consistent ongoing participation from you? And then at that level 3, really highlighting those students in your communities who have distinguished themselves as strong leaders. In some cases, we've had schools use this information to identify additional possible TAs or to unlock additional rights for students in the community because they've been so good at, being a leader in that space. And then of course you can go in here and see the specific activities of each student, what they've, under the covers, like a level down, what are the specific activities and things that they've been doing. So you can see, what is the real quality of what they've been contributing and where do they seem to be, what topics and areas do they seem to be demonstrating some expertise in. I will say this is another area. So as a platform, the students have quite a lot of control over their visibility to other students. So I can change my image here. I can actually change my display name, add a little bit of information about myself. It kind of ties to what we talked about earlier in terms of allowing for things like anonymity and posting more privately. But as a moderator, you will always know who that student is. And this box here is only visible to moderators. You would always be able to see the student's name and their email address and interact with them if there's ever behavior in the community that was inappropriate or was excellent. You can always get to them and know who they are. Awesome. Any last questions, Danielle, before I jump back to the slides?
We don't have any questions at this point, but I would recommend that we stay on. The two of us will stay on here for probably about 5 to 10 minutes afterwards. And if you do have a question that you'd like to either ask us live or within the chat, please feel free to put any text questions in the chat. Or if you raise your hand here in the Zoom room, I will make sure that we unmute you and we could have a voice-to-voice chat, which would be nice as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So a couple of things before we wrap up. I hope that through the use cases that we talked about and then seeing the platform in action, you get a sense of our focus on supporting all the constituents that are in this space, whether it's the faculty or the other folks that are supporting students, recognizing how busy they are and building a product that is really designed to make their lives more efficient and better organized and simpler. And then, of course, from the student's perspective, recognizing that they are also busy, they maybe are lacking a little bit of confidence or aren't always sure where to go when they need help. And so opening up visibility to a set of resources and answers to help them be more successful and ultimately improve their outcomes in terms of their course completion. We have, if you're interested in sort of learning about or thinking about the use of InScribe or how communities work more broadly at your institution, we have this self-assessment that you can take. It is designed just to kind of tease out some questions about different areas that community might be relevant for your university. We actually encourage usually for a couple folks at the university to take it, and then you guys can kind of compare notes. I think Danielle will drop in the chat a link to that right now. So we welcome you to send that. We'll send you your results, and it'll include some tips and ideas for expanding community when it's relevant. And then, of course, I would love to stay connected with you all. Please reach out to me. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but feel free to email me, give me a call, or check out the Inscribe website if you want a deeper demo, or if you want to talk through any of the use cases that are specific to your organization. We would love to hear from you. So please do reach out. And with that, we will wrap it up. And again, we will send you, everyone, a recording of the webinar, as well as some additional resources in just a few days. So thanks so much, everybody. And as Danielle said, we'll hang out here for a little bit if anybody has any additional questions.
Yeah, and if you would like to have a voice-to-voice chat, just raise your hand and we can unmute you.